Good afternoon. I'm Karen Lloyd, a retired Army Aviation Colonel and Director of the Veterans History Project. On behalf of the Librarian of Congress and all of our colleagues, I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining us for the Craft in America panel discussion. Today's panel is the first of our series of Veterans Art Showcase events that we will be hosting this week. The Art Showcase will serve to kick off our year-long anniversary celebration commemorating 20 years since Congress passed legislation, I think of it as our birth certificate, to launch the Veterans History Project under the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. The mission of the Veterans History Project is to collect, preserve, and make accessible the stories of U.S. military veterans who served from World War I through the current conflicts, so that future generations may hear directly from those veterans and better understand their selfless service. Their history is our history. Their stories are our stories. Stories of our nation told by folks who witnessed historic events, whether they were in the foxhole, the cockpit, a ship deck, a mess hall, or even at a desk. To date, we hold over 110,000 collections in our archive from individuals just like you who sit down with veterans and Gold Star family members to ask them about the lives of their loved ones. Our collections include video and audio recorded oral histories, original photographs, letters, military documents, diaries, journals, and even two-dimensional art. Arts in the military may seem at odds, but in reality, they have a deep and profound connection. Whether it is the scrimshaw of a Revolution-era Navy sailor, the combat filming of Frank Capra during World War II, or sketches in the journal of a young soldier waiting for orders in Afghanistan, wherever the military goes, art is created. It is my pleasure to provide a brief introduction to three exceptional veteran artists whose works not only have been inspired by their service, but also played a crucial role in their recovery from injuries they received during service. To create a piece of art is to create a piece of yourself. And just as bone knits and muscle heals after an injury, art can help fill the spaces torn apart by trauma, piece by piece. Our panelists tonight are a trio of incredibly talented ceramic artists. Judas Recendez holds a master's in fine arts from George Washington University and has been featured in exhibitions here in the Washington, D.C. area, as well as San Francisco and Ireland. An Army vet, he served 2 tours in Iraq where he lost both legs to an IED explosion. Matt Krousey is a professional studio potter and has owned and run his own ceramic studio in St. Paul, Minnesota for over a decade, and his art has been featured in over 60 exhibitions. He served 9 years and was deployed to Iraq with the Minnesota Army National Guard. Ehren Tool is probably the most prolific artist who has never sold a single piece. Since 2001, he has created and given away over 2,100, I think he told me earlier today, 21,000, ceramic cups, each one featuring a unique illustration that he hopes will cause the recipient to think about the effects of war and a subject he was intimately acquainted with during his service as a Marine. And I can promise you, Erin, that mine certainly does. I would like to thank all of them for being here with us today and sharing their wisdom and experiences. Without further ado, I'll turn the microphone over to our amazing moderator, Mrs. Carol Sauvion, the creator and executive producer of Craft in America and a passionate supporter of and expert on all things craft. Carol.
Thank you so much, Karen. I'd like to start our conversation by thanking the Library of Congress, which I think is a best-kept secret. Having been to Washington many times as a child, for some reason we never came to this magnificent building. And I remember walking in the first time several years ago and just being overwhelmed by it. And I think that our veterans feel the same way from what we experience today. I'd also like to thank Monica Mohindra. Is Monica here? She's probably busy. She is the Chief of Program Coordination and Communication for the Veterans History Project. We first met Monica, with Patricia, about 3 or 4 years ago. We came to visit. We did an episode of Craft in America entitled Service, and it was about art, and it was about actually craft in the military. And Judas Recendez was featured in that, and Ehren Tool. So we became friends and realized how important it is to talk about success in the world of the veterans. So that's sort of why we're here. I wanted to just say, I'm sure you all know more about the Library of Congress than I do. I was amazed to know that it was started in 1800, and that when the library burned during the War of 1812, after that war, Thomas Jefferson sold his books, over 6,000 books. And we thank him for the fact that this is not just a legal library or a military library. It is a library representing all of the book arts. So that's pretty exciting, I think. And more exciting for us, and I'm going to flip that now, when we started our project in 2007, we knew we had to have an exhibition to go along with the series, and we knew we had to have a book. So this book, Craft in America, celebrating 2 centuries of artists and objects, has a Library of Congress number of 978-0-307-346-47-6. So to know that and I was speaking with Karen about this earlier, to know that our book is in this place, and she said, oh, there are 2 copies. I thought, this is amazing. So I'm very excited about that. That makes me feel, and I think all of us felt our democracy in a different way today. We watch the news a lot, but to be in this building and to know a little bit of the history and to know what we do have as our right as citizens is really important for us all to remember. Now I'm going to talk about these 3 gentlemen, and they are they have a little clay on them, but that's because they've been working all day, which was such a great experience to be throwing pots and making pots in the Library of Congress. Each one of these men I contacted and said, would you? And they said, yes. And I said, well, wait, you don't know the details. They said, doesn't matter, we're there. And there they were. And we were worried about where we would get the clay. And this morning at 8 a.m., I got a text from Ehren Tool saying, we delivered the clay. Where did you get the clay at 7 o'clock in the morning? But they did, and they used it today, which was really exciting. I think Matt or Jude had something to do. Jude had, because at dinner last night, that's all they could talk about. Where are we going to get the clay? And they got it, so that's great. So I think tonight, you've all come to hear these 3 men talk. And so rather than be in the middle of it, I think I want to introduce them and applaud them for actually having a career in the arts and to incorporate their service into their daily lives. I mean, I think the veterans are very special people, and we'll find that out more this evening. And that's all my notes, so I'm going to start with Jude Recendez, and what I'm thinking, I'm going to hand this to you, because you're next, and there you are. And you can tell us a bit about yourself, and then we'll hear from Matt, we'll hear from Erin, and see if anyone has questions. Okay.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us here. It's been a great privilege and honor to throw here at the Library of Congress. Thank you for the Veteran Art Project for inviting us out, Craft in America, of course. And no, it's just been amazing. Again, my name is Judas Recendez. That's a young version of me right there.
Handsome.
It's odd looking at myself. But that was, I think, late 2003 in Iraq. It was 2003 to 2007. I was in the military. I was 1st Armored Division, mechanized infantry out of Baumholder, Germany. Little town, small town, great mountain biking, if you ever plan to go. I was injured on my 2nd deployment, so I came to DC to receive rehab and so forth. I moved, after getting out of the military, I moved back to California, realizing that, unfortunately, the amount of care wasn't catching up through the VA system. I returned back to DC to continue my rehab, where I started my undergrad. I did my undergrad at the Corcoran College of Art and Design in DC. I got that in 2013. Took some time off, had some surgeries, and then did my MFA at GW. So that was 2017, and I'm now back in California, and I teach at a community college, which I teach a class of wheel throwing and hand building. And the funny story is, before I went into the military, I actually took the wheel throwing class. The funny part about it is that I actually failed that class. But now, after receiving my degree, but now I'm teaching there, so it's a unique experience. I really enjoy it. But yeah, this is me. First deployment. Oh my gosh, that was a horrible picture. But that's my introduction. Should I continue the slide?
Sure, why don't you go through your slides?
Okay, yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, so these are some cups. They're actually solo cups. This was in 2017. I did some slip cast molding, and I got these prints of just some prints I found online to help talk about how social drinking, especially in the higher education, can be somewhat of an issue. So I use, not knowing how light body that clay was, it was really white. Now realizing it's red, white, and blue, it really did a theme for my whole show. So the funny part about this one is I made my own aqua frescas, which are like it's like a fruit drink. And at the show, I had some just punch bowls. But there was no cups, so it forced my viewer to actually take the piece and you can consume out of it. Some people took 1 or 2 or 5, but it was funny. I thought it was funny. Oh, this is from the show, Craft in America. These are some of my functional wares. And I mean, the thing for me in ceramics, it's kind of this middle ground with functional ceramics, or using this in comparison to this is maybe a little more political charge. But with this, it kind of breaks away, so I'm not too focused. Or if I get over my head and I'm trying to over-process something, I go back to the wheel and it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna, I need a nice pasta dish or fruit bowl, and I take so much more pleasure out of, with people I know, just giving these pieces out and knowing that it's just going to be on their kitchen table or their morning coffee or so on and so forth, or hold their pasta. But yeah, these are some of my functional wares. And yeah, let's go to the next one. Oh, this is a piece I actually threw at the time of the interview. Mm-hmm. It's a 2-piecer, and so I threw the base and then I threw the upper tall part. It was tallish, something, I don't know the size, mm-hmm. I don't remember. But it's cone 6, so functional wear. Came out really nice. I was surprised with that one. I was just telling myself, just don't screw this up.
In fact, you said that to the camera.
Yeah.
But don't screw this up.
That's the only thought going through my head. But it came out nice. But yes, that was so this is me working through craft versus art and asking the questions of what defines that. And it's such a long story, but for me, understanding the functionality of craft, and if I rendered that functionality out of the piece, is it considered more art? So these are some few pieces where I'd throw the piece, and then I would put slabs through them. So having them to be non-functional and more as a sculpture. So those were fun. Oh my gosh, this is fruit stripe. So I have a little fun with some of my pieces. And going to school in DC, you're always at some museum or gallery. So I was at the Renwick when they just reopened it again, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm just looking around. And I know, yeah, you're an artist, you're gonna totally look at everything. But noticing how the viewer, and I know I shouldn't do it to make fun of the viewer, but I did, noticing the viewer observing art through their phone and having the image of themselves and the piece of work in the background, or so on and so forth. So I made a few of these, and I would drop them around places. This is and they're about 3 feet tall. Kind of hard to get into a gallery, but it sometimes worked. And I would change the health facts. I'd write stuff on it, like my name or something, nutritional facts. But has anybody had fruit stripe gum? Yes, right? And how quick does that flavor just leave you?
25 seconds.
Yes, it's very quick. So I thought that was very appropriate to use that type of piece around for galleries. Yeah, I didn't stick around to see if it worked, if they were doing selfies or anything. I thought it was funny. So, but yeah, that's fruit stripe. Oh, now this was an early work, but I've been using it over and over. This is an image that I used ink pen and digitize on a piece of board and then drilled holes through it. The person behind it is codenamed Curveball. So, and this individual sold information to Germany and the U.S. about weapons of mass destruction and chemical weapons in Iraq. So I would put Dum Dum lollipops, and then underneath the description it goes, "Please take one." So they're taking one out, and it's slowly revealing the image. And I played how I set up the lollipops. So, because once you take the lollipop and start eating it, it slowly reveals it. But no one really knows about codename Curveball. So, and it slowly reveals the image. This is one of his early photos I think it's like late 70s or early 80s. That was out at the time. But it's, yeah, lollipops. Oh, and this is a piece I also did earlier. This was called Keep Practicing. This is a 9mm bullets on a piece of about 3/4 of an inch solid wood. And at the time, I was asking the question of being in the military. We do practice, even though we're hitting targets that have weapons at the low ready, they at least have a weapon. And as I searched through targets, a lot of them are very passive. They're non-aggressive. And then I was looking on what states buy them and who sells them. So, and we're training. It's just to bring up a conversation of training not only soldiers but our police force to engage targets that has a silhouette which is usually a darker color, and they're very passive stance. And so I commented on that by applying 9mm bullet shells to the board. And the board thickness is usually, if you can penetrate that thickness, it's considered lethal. So, yes, and if you do order bullet or order shells, it's very difficult to get them through DC. So be very careful, and you have to go through the right process because they will ask lots of questions. This is pickup sticks. So you can see how, with craft, I don't know, and it's just, that's for me, or with ceramics, that's just for me. I do express myself in that, but I also, when I create something like this, it's really more of a figurative expression of commenting on not only society, but also myself. So this is pickup sticks, and it's a triangle in front of just some other stained wood pieces, and actually create more triangles. So for this one, it was actually, this was right when I was in grad school. My father passed away. So it's 5'11", which was his height. So at least the main white triangle. And all the other broken pieces behind it are representations of my siblings. So I'm just gonna, oh yes, and look at that guy. Much hairier version of me. This is when I was in Fredericksburg, in my garage, which was my studio. So on my wheel, which Chris really enjoyed that, especially in the winter when it snowed a little. But this is where I produce the majority of my ceramic wares and functional pieces, and just playing around when I get too out of it. Oh, and that is me in a nutshell.
We may come back and ask you questions.
Okay, please do.
Is that a bong? No.
No, that's actually an Ethiopian tea.
Here, I'll start here.
Oh.
That's funny. Yeah, I was very surprised when I met you because your hair was gone.
Yes, I know.
My name is Matt Krause, and I'd also like to just thank Carol and Craft in America, Patricia, and the Library of Congress, because when I got that email too, I was like, well, I don't really care what's going on. I mean, I feel like that's an invite up. I'm by and large a potter. Like a potter doesn't get that invite too often to demonstrate at the Library of Congress. So thanks for having me all the way from Minnesota. And so this is a picture of one. I always post this on Veterans Day because not many of my supporters, fans, customers, or individuals know that I'm a veteran, because I feel like vets, by and large, like they don't, like, I don't know, brag about the fact that they're a veteran or something like that. And so I joined the military in 2003 with the Minnesota National Guard and was deployed to Iraq in, 04 to 05. It was like fall to fall. And so this is also a picture of a much younger me. It's always kind of funny to dig up these photos. Like I usually only see it on Veterans Day, and it's just funny to see it again. I was much more, I don't know, seeing the machine guns. It's like, oh yeah, now I make pots. And so being from Minnesota, I grew up near a military base that's for reservists or National Guard members called Camp Ripley, and my dad had been in the National Guard for 30 years, and my grandpa was a veteran, and my great-grandpa was a World War I vet, and so I always felt that need to kind of fulfill that family legacy, and also thought, well, if I'm going to go to school for pottery, because I've been obsessed with clay since I was a little kid, I saw a demonstration in kindergarten, and that was pretty much that. And so, but I decided if I want to go to school and be an artist, I can't have like a bunch of school debt. And so I immediately joined the military. And then 9/11 happened and found myself in Iraq, which is just, I feel like there's a reason the military recruits younger men by and large, in the sense of they don't think things through. I feel like young women maybe think things through a little more, and it's more for country and service. But I was definitely like, rah. But so this is a picture of where I grew up, and this is where I live now, just to give a context of what my work is about. And so I took my military experience and used it to fuel my kind of urge to create, and it added a seriousness, but by and large, the concept and the visuals in my artwork aren't about my experience. And so when I was deployed, I became really concerned. Seeing all the destruction, devastation just made me really concerned. Like when I get back home, like the environment's being destroyed. And so for me, my work is about this little area of central Minnesota where there's a lot of, just commercial development and things like that. And so my work spawns off this really local environment. And so we have a lot of birds that migrate through. Sandhill cranes have always been a strong influence for me. They nest on our property and on a lot of the adjoining fields. And so for me, that's what I want to protect now. Like my military experience, I got out in 2012. And so it was kind of like a jumping point because, you know, if you do 20 years, you've got a retirement one day. And so I was at 9 and I was like, I think I just want to make pottery. but sometimes I think about that. But so using Los Sandhill cranes, and Minnesota's kind of a hotbed for potters. And we were having this argument because there's like, in the clay world, there's such a history of craft, and where we all that work in clay fit within that can sometimes be heated conversation. And not because there's necessarily a hierarchy, it's just we're all trying to figure it out too. Like, am I an artist, am I a craftsman, am I both? Like, where do I belong in this world? And so I, by and large, make functional pots. I fire, like one of the things I love about America and the military is just the mishmash of culture. Like joining the military, coming from rural Minnesota, was just kind of an awakening of culture. Like my battle buddy, my best friend was Ahmed Siddiqui from Pakistan. Like, he was my best friend in the military. And like, in rural Minnesota, you know, that experience probably isn't gonna play out. And so I always would think about that and just think about, you know, what a great experience that was. But now I'm like obsessed with these animals and I have to protect them. And so there's lots of horned owls and things. Oh, and so where I was going with that is the mishmash of culture of America is like what makes this so great. And so I always laugh at American ceramic artists because we're kind of the one group of people in clay that can kind of pick and pull whatever they like from each culture and get away with it without getting into too much trouble. And you're not trying to take it and call it your own, but since we don't have, I mean, functional pots have a long history, but the art side of clay doesn't have like 1,000 years of history. I mean, unless you go into the Native American culture, which does exist, but by and large, you know, the Europeans that came over brought all this mishmash culture. And so I always laugh because I fire in a German salt kiln, but my aesthetic influence and the materials I use are by and large inspired by traditional Korean and Japanese ceramics, and that's aesthetically what I've chosen to study. But I always laugh because I'm firing in this German style, and it's just, I don't know. That's why America's, yeah, it's pottery. I feel like the clay world is very embracing of that. But so we're the land of 10,000 lakes, so you gotta be worried about the fish too. And so kind of the thing I say is like, I want people, each one of my functional pots to be a gentle reminder to the people using them that like, hey, look out your window and maybe, you know, recycle. You know? Just, I don't know. I feel like functional pots lets you kind of nudge in an opinion where people don't necessarily, you know, you just weasel it in there a little bit. But, and so I also do, Minnesota's the land of artist grants. So for any of you artists out there, if you want a lot of support, Minnesota's a really great place to be. And so this is from, I had a Jerome Project grant I graduated from school with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in 2008, and then had a couple different fellowships at a local clay center called Northern Clay Center. It's like the big local nonprofit clay place. And then this was a Jerome Project grant. So it's a foundation in Minnesota that gives grants for you to pursue new avenues of creating. And so I wanted to take all the functional work and put it on tiles and mount it on the wall. Because you can't really, it's hard to exhibit functional pots in public avenues, just because when you're making functional pots, and you and I were talking about this, like you want them to be used by people. Like once they get put under plexi, it's just kind of like it died. Especially if the artist is alive and creating yet, because it's not like it's never going to be able to be attained again. But so this 2D work was an ability for me to do that and to show things at like train stops and things like that. And then a few years after that, I got a grant from the State Arts Board to do large sculptural work that I put in parks. But strangely enough, there was so much vandalizing of the artwork, which I was paid to make them, so it was okay, but somebody liked shooting them with a like a 22 caliber rifle. But it's funny, none of them had holes. They just had little chips because
It's 20.
ceramic can take, a 22 cal. I mean, that's what Kevlar, right? So the body armor of the clay was fine, just once things get chipped, But I like to alter a lot, and I like to work fairly fluid at the wheel, and so I'll make just cylinders and then flatten them so I have 2 dimensions to work on versus a round surface. Because that's kind of the tricky part with pots is like you're working in the round all the time. And so if you start to distort things, it's a little bit simpler. And then the same thing, this piece actually was in town over the weekend. And so I, by and large, I don't teach too much anymore, a little bit at nonprofit centers like Northern Clay Center and like community ed, adult ed, things with not too high of a commitment because by and large I'm working in my studio at home, producing work, and then I go on the road to sell it. And so this weekend before, there was a big pottery sale at the Hill Center, which is the old Naval Civil War Hospital. That's an art center, and so it's called Pottery on the Hill. And so I was invited to come do that show. And so it was really funny when I got the email from Carol, because I was like, well, I don't need a plane ticket because I'll actually be in town already, which that never happens. Yeah, so that was pretty fun. And so I've been wandering around town all week. So it's pretty great. And you meet a lot of vets in the arts. It's kind of peculiar because vets usually don't, they don't have it stamped on their forehead, but I feel like other vets can always pick them out of the crowd because there's just a certain way you carry yourself. Anybody that's prior service from the military just kind of stands a little straighter. But so I taught classes for veterans for a while, and it was really intriguing. And I was just speaking with a gentleman about this outside that it was really intriguing to work because most of the vets our age, it's really hard to get into a room to take art classes because they have kids, they have careers, they're just at a point in their life where they don't have time to, do something on the side. And so what I learned from a lot of most of the vets I taught were Vietnam and Korea, was just I've been avoiding my experience, I guess, in a way. Just like I'd rather just make pots and not think about it. But they all said like, oh, just wait, like in your 40s and 50s is when you'll get to do all that. And always have avoided the term therapy when I teach clay, just because if you do that, sometimes people new to something will shut down. And so I always told my vets that I was teaching, like, if you get something out of this, let's not label it, but let me know, because let's try to get it so you can keep doing this. So I partnered with a nonprofit in Minnesota called Veterans in the Arts, and we lasted for 5 years, and we taught classes to vets. They would blow glass, all kinds of stuff. But it was really great, and some of them have gotten money from the VA to set up studios at their homes, actually, because they found it beneficial enough. Hondo. There's some real crazy characters that not that vets are crazy. We're normal people, but we tend to have pretty strong personalities, I guess I would say. Strong opinions. And so this is like barbed wire, concertina wire, and so a lot of my motifs, I guess, in a way, do kind of bridge a gap between my military service. For me, it's like if it's a nice aesthetic choice, I'll incorporate it into the work. And so, barbed wire, concertina wire. And then just these, simple motifs acting with each other, but people kind of can bring in their own knowledge. But if you know old Korean or Japanese folk pots, like you can see some reference there. But I just love the idea of like being fired in a German salt kiln. And then salt firing, so it probably developed in the Rhineland region of Germany back in the 15th century because they're wood firing kiln, using wood as fuel from old pickling barrels. And so it's like you can thank sauerkraut and pickles for the salt content for creating salt firing. Because what's happening is the sodium from the salt's combining with the silica and the clay, and it's combining and doing its own thing. But it's actually become popular in Japan now, which is really intriguing, like in the Mashiko region. Oh. So like Hamada and Shimoka and those guys do a lot of salt firing. But so I toss in this picture because the biggest thing I miss about being in the military is just the camaraderie, because I just feel like that was one of my biggest wounds when I left the service, is you're just lost, kind of. And I went back to school then right away after my deployment, and just like in the Guard. So when I wasn't deployed, I was just in the National Guard, and you know, it is the 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, and so you don't really build that camaraderie that you have when you're active. But so this is my new pottery family, and so I'm part of a group of potters, and I think clay really is, I don't know, you guys probably agree, like it tends to be a little more community oriented than a lot of the other art forms, just because it takes a village kind of to get things done. And so I do this big show. I'm part of a group that puts on a big show, the St. Croix Valley Pottery Tour in the spring. And this is all the people it takes to do that at my house. And so it's kind of like my new little unit. Although very different people than would ever join the military. I will acknowledge that stereotype in my experience in the arts has kind of held up, that military folks are. There should be a lot of us in there, but it's by and large people that aren't going to join the military. But I think you're next. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's me 100 pounds ago. Yeah, whatever. I was in the 91 Gulf War. I was with MP Company, Headquarters Battalion, 1st Marine Division. We were attached to Task Force Ripper and went from Saudi Arabia into Kuwait. That's 12 noon during the oil fires in Kuwait. And then that skinny little kid there, that's me. After the Gulf War, I volunteered. I extended for 15 months and volunteered for embassy duty. Had 2 hardship posts back to back. I was in Rome for 15 months and then Paris for 15 months. I say, 100 pounds ago, I looked good in a uniform. I make cups, lots of cups. It's a great picture of me, yeah. Santa Claus and axe murderer is what people say. Look, 2 comments I get most often. So this is, I like putting the cups all together like that, because you can kind of see, you know, a pattern or a sense of humor. Or any one on its own can be kind of overwhelming, but in a group like that, I feel like it's, you know, it tells more of a full story. Not that I think you can really express what war is or anything useful pretty much at all. But then it's also like, when it's sitting on the wall there, it looks kind of dead to me. It's a lot more fun thinking about each of those cups from my hand to your hand to some point 500,000 to 1 million years in the future. Like, you take the cup and it means something to you, and then when you're gone, because the cup meant something to you, it'll mean something to the people that cared about you. And that to me is a much more interesting way to think about the cups living in time than in a white box someplace. A buddy of mine, a photographer friend, had another buddy who had a rifle, and we went out to the country and shot a bunch of cups, and was, you know, trying to get it was a high-speed flash, and so we have a bunch of pictures of a bullet right before a cup, and then a pile of dust and a bullet beyond the cup. But we got a few with a bullet right there, and that's that moment, right? Like, the cups can go unchipped for 500,000 to 1 million years, or a little piece of lead hits them, and that's the end. And same way with all the war dead, you know. They could have gone on to be doctors and lawyers and fathers and mothers, but a little piece of lead found them, and that's that. Excuse me if I cry. So I've been doing these little demo things, or, you know, I get invitations to make workplaces, and this is at Oscar Grant or Frank Ogawa Plaza, depending on your politics, downtown Oakland. I did a thing a couple months before this in Palo Alto, fancy neighborhood, and the idea was I would make cups and make cups for other veterans. In Palo Alto, I met no vets. Actually, one of the janitors was a veteran. There were a bunch of people that worked in the defense industry. You don't know Palo Alto, it's a pretty wealthy neighborhood. Lots of people made weapon systems and were living in that neighborhood. Then I got invited to Oakland, and so every Sunday for the month where the show was up, I'd drag this heavy kick wheel out there and throw in the middle of this plaza. And I was a little nervous, like white boy jumping into downtown Oakland, but there I met a lot more vets. And, you know, some of them had drug and alcohol problems, but so do I. So we got along fine, and was able to give cups away to the community there. That was, which way? So grad school, my first year of grad school was the end of the first year of Gulf War II. air quotes, right? Because we never stopped bombing Iraq since '91. But there were 393 U.S. combat casualties that first year. So I made, glazed, decorated, and shot 393 cups. And in grad school, right, functional pottery, they got nothing to talk about. But I shot them. I talked for months about, like, the shattered vessel and whatever. So, it's at the Museum of Craft and Folk Art in Los Angeles. You can't see it, but on the wall there's 1,300 cups for that show. The curator asked me, she's like, do you want a solo show or a group show? And I was like, if you're asking, I guess I want a solo show. But then I panicked and, wanted to make sure I had enough work. But that's when I realized I'd crossed the line between productive and obsessive, right? 1,300 cups for a show. This is at Palo Alto Art Center. I didn't send it, man. There's a great picture just off to the right. It says, please don't touch, which was so stupid to me because I gave them all away. But I was there for a month. They let me work there for a month. They wrote a grant and it paid for their crew to fire the kilns and stuff. And so all those cups I made there in Palo Alto. Yeah. And that was fun. Yeah. Anyway, cups. It's Craft in America cups. A professional took those pictures. And yeah. Toys. I just make cups. So that's I like the idea of taking a photograph of a three-dimensional thing is kind of funny, but so that's the front of one and that's the back, or I don't know, right? So the target, right? Even the most justified kill, even the most, righteous shoot, it's still somebody's baby. And I didn't think that, when I was in the Marines, I was just a kid. I didn't know what I was doing, but when my son was born, it was like a flash. Like all of a sudden, everybody became somebody's kid, and people with just broken people break people. And it's just little kids, that somebody didn't hold when they were supposed to, or I don't know, cups. That's yeah. When we were in France, my son said, "Dad, grow a beard." I was like, "Okay, I'm in France. Who cares? Nobody's gonna see it." Then I grew the beard and. My son said, "Dad, I like your beard better than your face." And my wife was quiet, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to ask her to say it. And so I grew the beard. But that's my studio. That's why I love invitations like this, because your studio is much nicer than mine. Nice, and people come visit, and I'm just alone in the bunker there. Is that it?
I think that's it.
Right on.
Yay.
Thanks, folks.
Now,
Back to craft.
I'd like to know, does anyone have a question? Because I do, but if no one else does.
Which bar?
No, this is about your professional lives. When did each of you decide you wanted to spend your life as an artist? Did it have anything to do with the military service, or was it something earlier on in your life, or do you consider yourselves artists? So those are my questions.
Who would like to go first?
Well, he's the only professional artist up here, teachers and whatever, kiln fairy.
I just don't have long enough attention span to be a teacher. No. For me, it was really early on, but I felt, I was a chemistry major before I was deployed, and then I came home and immediately switched to fine art.
Okay.
Because I felt like I'm going to do whatever I want to do.
Crafted America.
I think after being in a war zone, you're just like, I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't care if it's a financially, good choice. You're just I'm going to be an artist. But I was always in clay my whole life. Since I saw a demo when I was in kindergarten, I was like, I want to do that. But then it was secondary plan until, you just have a different mindset after you.
Yeah, to join the Marine Corps, I'm going to do 4 years in the Marine Corps. When I told my granddad I joined the Marine Corps, he laughed, and he said, "They're going to take your soul." I was like, way to destroy my Kodak moment, Granddad. But you join the Marine Corps, you're like, 4 years, what's the big deal? I'll get money for college. And then 2 years in, the war kicks off, and you're like, oh, wow.
Yes,
and so that was the thing for me is nothing guarantees success. So you might as well do something you love, right? And if you love it, maybe you'll do it well. If you do it well, maybe someone will pay you. The pay you thing hasn't worked out, but whatever. But it's still like, you know, it's just, and then if I'm an artist or crafts person or whatever, I don't, that's somebody else, some art historian's problem. I think everybody's obligation is to make their work. If you're a painter and painting's dead, sucks to be you, but don't make bad videos. Like, you know, just, you're supposed to make your work. And, you know, division of labor in the arts, like let somebody else put what section of the book it goes in. Or,
Sure.
That's not my, I don't
Yeah,
wanna
there's
spend
no
time
line
messing with that.
dictates it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely find, especially myself, when joining the military, feeling, especially that brotherhood with other individuals, especially, you know, looking after them and them looking after you, but getting out of that as a veteran, producing whatever that may be, but I produce art. If that makes me an artist, that's fine. I don't, whatever. It just helps me continue that drive that the military helped instilled in me. And I'm not this serious all the time. I like to have fun, but especially introducing ceramics to maybe a younger generation at the community college where I grew up. So that is like huge for me, and I try to make it as enjoyable for them to help them learn those fundamentals so they can go on and do whatever they like. So.
Right. Yes, Tara.
I love the small, very minimalist images that are on of the animals that are on your pieces. Where do those come from for you?
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were talking to Judas. Like,
I know, it's
Oh,
like,
no, so for me, it's just where I grew up. Like that picture says it all. And so that environment, like I mean, it goes back a ways. So my grandpa grew up on some property that like no running water, and my dad grew up there too. And it was, 500 acres of like untouched central Minnesota. And so when he passed away and that got sold off, it's like, boom, subdivision. And so just, it's like my anger from combat and just the nonsense of all of it has just been redirected to that. And so they're just the characters that live there, if that makes sense. Like barred owls, sandhill cranes, fish in the lake. I just like to work minimalist, because then if you're abstract and minimalist, the viewer can take in whatever they want from it. But my reasoning is, to preserve some sort of record of them being there, because clay in history that's really what, at an archaeological dig, it's all the clay shards that they're looking at, because that's what stood the test of time. Mm-hmm. And so kind of going with your concept, like, they might break into a gazillion pieces, but those pieces are going to be there because they're rocks now. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, like your cups, you can
Shards,
smash them, but they're
future
going to
shards.
be there.
Yeah, I feel like that's part of the thing too, is recording, like this is happening, like, and I don't, like here it's easy to forget that it's happening, but it's still happening, and it's really real for a lot of people. And so there's something, rather than just, set my hair on fire and scream naked down the street, I make cups. And, just record some of the stuff that's happening. And, the weirdness of like going to the Gulf War and coming home and seeing toys, for 6-year-olds, like, wearing gas masks, like with blister agent, or,
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
that how do you explain to a 6-year-old what mustard gas is? Like it's just not, and just how weird and perverse. When I was at USC for undergrad, University of Southern California, they were really proud. Right when I left, they had just opened this new research facility, and it was funded 50-50, the military and the entertainment industry, and it was virtual reality, for training, and that, I think, training saves lives, but it's also like entertainment industry, like mixing, making more fun. And, I think the soldiers and Marines that are out there now, Navy pilots, everybody, they're more lethal than ever before because of the training, learning how to get people to kill, and, using sights and using screens and joysticks instead of, bayonets. And I think hopefully it's easier just a weird, do you want to make killing easier?
Well, yeah, make it impersonal. Yeah.
A lot to think about.
The darkest pottery conversation.
We have another question.
Hello.
Hi.
Did any of you ever feel like a quote unquote struggling artist? And if so, did any of you have a plan B?
I don't think any of us have a plan B, but do we all feel like struggling artists? No.
For sure.
Yeah, yes. Plan B is to produce more. So that is how I'm trying to solve it.
Yeah.
But basically, for how my practice works, is I just ask questions. That's usually what I like to do. And there's plenty of questions. You may not like the answer, but there are all these questions. And if I can get somebody to talk about it, then I find that to be successful, whether it be funny or something way too serious. So that's,
I went to a gallery, was trying to get my work into a gallery, and the gallery owner said, well, the work's strong, but what's for sale? And I said, there's more to art than money, right? And she said, not much. Which I appreciated her honesty about that. I think most galleries would just be like, I'm sorry, sir, your work's just not for us. But I think, part of the thing, I tell the students, if you have to make art, then, prepare for the beat down and enjoy your time. If making art is a choice for you, then go talk to the career counselor and figure out what you're going to do, because you're not going to do it. So it's not like, I'm a little sad on the 1st and 15th when I look at my bank statements, those are sad, but the day-to-day life, hanging out with folks like you all, getting to travel the world as a potter, not a soldier, it's magic. And just, the art collection, artists that I've traded stuff with, if you put $1 on it, it might be worth something, but it's just so nice to me. And I think, honestly, if I was doing almost anything else, I would have swallowed a bullet by now. I just wouldn't have been able to. So the struggle's real, and I'm lucky. My wife is a ceramic artist. My mother-in-law. I got a day job where I can sneak my stuff into the kiln. But it's a lot of luck, and yeah.
I had a good friend, fellow potter, Guillermo Corella, tell me once, there's no plan B when your skill set doesn't allow you to do anything else anymore. And so I feel like I've reached that point, and I couldn't imagine. I would just never not do what I do. But I think, I'm on the more functional side, and so making a living at it, it's easier to argue, I think, with folks. I feel like I do just as well making pots as I would doing anything else. But every day when I wake up, that's what I do, and I do it all the way, you work way longer hours than, we always joke, man, if I had been a lawyer, I'd be the most successful lawyer there's ever been, because I'm working 12 to 14 hours a day. But you're making the work, and it, just fills you up.
and if you're crafty enough, you can get hopefully somebody to flip the bill for you.
Yeah.
So
You figure it out.
If it squeezes you, you will definitely try to find ways. So
Artist grants and.
yeah.
But my granddad, he said he always wished he'd learned how to paint. If he had picked up a brush the first time he told me that, he would have been painting for at least 30 years when he died. But he never, and it went to his grave as a regret that he never did it, and so, anyway, better not to regret.
Koala, and, yeah.
Yes.
I was an Army chaplain for about 10 years and never deployed. But within, and not a Jewish chaplain, so I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but it's been important to me in my process is within Jewish culture, there's a concept of the responsibility of remaking the world. And that's kind of where I couch my arts practices, that bringing beauty and breathing life into the world. And I was wondering if that is something, you may not have phrased it that way to yourselves, but in your practice of art or what draws you to what you do, is that part of what brings you to the ceramics, the molding, the creating something out of nothing that takes shape, and particularly with functional art. I mean, there's within the minor prophets, in those last days, even the cooking pots have emblazoned on them holy to the Lord. Like there's a real sacredness to that work. So that's a lot of thoughts, and if anything, I'll throw it at the wall, and if anything sticks or resonates with you, I just invite you to speak to it.
I mean, I'm speaking about my practice, but I want things to be aesthetically pleasing, like make people happy. But so you and I are like, we should have a show that's like duality. But the concept of, morbid or depressing topics can be beautiful.
Yeah, mushroom clouds. It's the beauty of a mushroom cloud.
Yeah, out of context, it's beautiful.
I do have a fantasy though. Like I don't like saying it in public, but right. So like, it was at the Oriental Museum in Chicago. I saw this old bowl. It was pre-Jesus, Judea, and they had painted a demon in the center and then a maze around it, and they'd put it upside down under the house before they built it. And so like if good and evil is like electricity, like positive and negative, it's just a thing that must manifest in the physical world, period, then my fantasy is that I can catch evil in the clay, and that dead baby is a dead baby for 1,000,000 years, and that can save, this is my fantasy. Like, if a talking snake in a burning bush, like I can have mine too. Right? Like, so, but that's my fantasy about it.
I like the graphic novel version of your life.
No, for sure, especially with ceramic wares. It's this intimacy that you have with it. I mean, you're bringing it to your face, you're putting your lips on it, you're holding it in your hands. And I think that's a factor that a narration can continue rather than just having your Starbucks coffee cup and something like that. And it can have this dialogue where any other medium, you really can't get it with that. Or I haven't seen it yet. Maybe it's out there.
You said that too about functional stuff and being able to slip.
Yeah, you get to touch it. It's craft art, however you want to label it. You get to touch it, and it's like promoted to touch it, even if it's a sculpture or something, because touching it's not going to hurt it. Unless it's in a collection.
It seems like we have this real problem of art and craft. This whole thing.
Oh, I don't know. Clay.
Yes, that is true.
But my problem is the touching part because of the intimacy of,
Yeah.
It was molded by the hand. I feel like clay removes, we have tools, but the tool is removed and it's really the individual that's coming through. Mm-hmm. Not to degrade painting or printmaking or other things. I feel like the process is so immediate. That,
that too,
your thumbprint could be in it.
But that's, I think, another thing to talk about war with ceramics is that, it's real immediate. You bend, you push, you punch, you make the little marks. Then it goes through the fire, and 500,000 to 1,000,000 years it's around. Same way, these little, we must do this, we must fight these people. These little immediate things have repercussions that last, forever. Wars don't end like with the signature. So.
Any other questions?
Which bar?
I have one last question, and it's kind of open-ended. What's next for all three of you?
More cups.
Yeah. Produce more. Yeah, no. That is a good question.
Do you want to think, and I'll just rattle something off quick?
There you go. There you go. While I ponder on the.
For me, it's just keep on keeping on. Make the work and get it out into the world. That's just kind of, I feel like the stage of my career I'm in, it's that. Just keep on chugging, which I think is any artist. Your goal is just to reach the largest audience you can so that your voice is heard.
Yeah, somebody was like, when did you master pottery? I was like, what are you talking about? I've only been doing it 20 years. I'm still working on it. I think I'm starting to get it. It's not Ken Price was talking about that. Like, you just don't retire as an artist. You die. You just work until it's over. You're always attaining new techniques and, meeting new people and having influences back and forth. Even teaching is a big influencer on, just having the students around and the stupid questions they ask. But, it's like, okay, why do we do it that way? I don't know. Then, anyway,
No.
always there.
No, for sure. It's definitely putting some more tools in the toolbox and trying to incorporate maybe cross mediums of ceramics to other pieces. So definitely, yeah, just keep going on. I mean, it's all uphill, but the view's great. So.
Well, I'd like to comment that there aren't that many people in our society now who are so satisfied, not that you're satisfied particularly with the work you're doing now, but with your choice. You see a long road to go with this choice. It's not like you're looking for alternatives. You've made up your minds, and that's pretty impressive nowadays. So I thank you all three for coming here and for working today. So
Such a pleasure.
Yes,
Oh.
thank you.
Thank you.
and to see this beautiful place and to meet these people.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Got one presentation that I'd like to make. What an amazing group of people, and I cannot thank you enough for coming to kick this off for us. What an amazing week, and you've started it off with a bang.
Wow.
But before you go, I just want our participants to understand how much we appreciate all that they've done for us all day long. It's been amazing for me to watch and others that have come by and seen it. So, Erin,
Wow, how cool.
back in the middle.
Yeah, really. No blood.
Oh yeah, there'll be a series of photographs.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, thank you so
Aw.
much, Karen.
So again, thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
It's just a certificate of appreciation, and that's exactly how we feel about not just your service, but your choice to be with us here today. And
Right on.
thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
Thank
much.
you very much.
It's so important what you're doing. We really appreciate being
Yes.
included.
It's a team effort, just like in the military. That's what makes it so special.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, cool.